Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of DTV. My name is Leila Modarres, and I'm very excited today to bring you Alisha Moopen, who is the Deputy Managing Director of Aster. This is one of the largest integrated healthcare conglomerates in the world. Alisha, amongst many other things, oversees the strategic direction of Aster, as well as its expansion into new markets. She's also been the recipient of a number of industry awards and accolades. She was elected by the World Economic Forum, just a small company that nobody's ever heard of, as a young global leader in 2018. She's also been recently elected to the board of directors at USA's Thought Leadership and Innovation Forum. Welcome to DTV, Alisha.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So let's maybe start at a high note and talk a little bit about your role at Aster Health, and also, what is the role that digital technology really plays in supporting some of your healthcare goals?
Sure. So just to give you a background on Aster, we are a 35-year-old organization, started with a small clinic and then expanded into pharmacies and then having hospitals. The vision for Aster that was set forth by our chairman has been to provide end-to-end care, the full circle of care within healthcare, from primary care all the way to quaternary care. So we do have anything that you want, from a regular OPD visit for a cold and cough all the way to sort of transplant programs, which are really sort of high end and complex, right? I think going into what we're stuck with right now has been 2 years of COVID, probably the most challenging time that the world has seen, but specifically so in healthcare. But we've been very impressed to see within our own organization, out of our 3,000 doctors, we had almost 1,000 doctors now onboarded on virtual consults. We had hundreds and thousands of consultations which happen online. At the end of the day, the patient care did not get compromised. And that for us was the biggest win. So as we look at it right now, I think mine and the boards and the management team's main focus is, how is it that these makeshift solutions that we kind of came up with to manage us during COVID, how do you ensure they're embedded into what we're doing on a day-to-day basis? A lot of these happened as periphery. Teleconsult was easy, but when it came to ICU, home care, a lot of these things were sort of sitting outside of the core technology. And now we don't want to lose this momentum we've gained with COVID. And we're saying, how do we make sure that this becomes the new way of life? Because there's so many benefits out of it. We don't want things to regress back to what we were pre-COVID.
So you talk a little bit about telehealth, and I guess the question is telehealth a trend? Is it something that is here to stay? And if so, what are some of the technologies that are going to be instrumental in ensuring that telehealth is effective?
Yeah, so I think the smartphones have really kind of revolutionized the way we do anything, right? Especially
Right.
starting with banking. Nobody goes to the banks anymore, and we say the camera in the phone just becomes such a powerful tool when it comes to healthcare. So even during COVID, there's some departments and diseases that it's much more easy for us to shift onto the online model and to the telehealth model that you're talking about. So when it's dermatology, when it's ENT, when it's a regular GP consultation, I think the power of the phone and just having some peripheral devices attached to it, which helps us sort of check the heartbeat, check the pulse, your the blood pressure monitors, your throat, like you mentioned, dermatology, you have a rash, especially kids, you just take a picture and send it to the doctor rather than having to take this crying baby across somewhere, right?
Right.
So some of these departments we've seen a permanent, we believe, a more permanent shift towards online care, because suddenly people are saving 2 hours of time going back and forth and waiting around. So I think time is everyone's most precious resource. I guess what's going to what's going to be interesting is how there's so many devices right now with the IoTs and with the wearables, the amount of data which is there. How do you kind of, as a healthcare system, make these into more actionable insights, right? You might be, I'm wearing a Whoop, you're probably wearing a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or something, and all this information, rather than just sitting with you, it would be great the minute it starts getting integrated into your healthcare provider's system, so that suddenly you can make more actionable insights and prepare kind of management patterns for people according to that. And especially for chronic disease management, when you're talking about lifestyle diseases right now, it cannot be your episodic interaction with a doctor. I want to know what you're doing on a daily basis so that I can sort of coach you towards a better management of things that, we probably have to live with. But rather than seeing it deteriorate over, maybe 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, how do I, on a weekly, monthly basis, stay connected with you so that I can guide you in the right direction? So I think these are the sort of diseases we feel will really kind of create stickiness for the patients, and also for people who just want to be well. If we have done our a genetic test and we know what we're predisposed to, how do I make sure that I don't end up in a certain place after a few years?
Okay.
I believe that the tipping point in healthcare is going to be really when we can use the past information about ourselves, whether it's our nationality, whether it's our genetic code, whether it's our social status, whether it's our educational levels, and sort of be able to predict where's my health going to reach me with the current choices that I'm making. So I think when we get to that point, that's when real shift in healthcare will happen,
Right.
and it's not far away.
Right. The next topic I was going to delve into was the user experience, and the customer experience has always been front and center in retail, but now it's becoming very much central and a priority in healthcare, patient care, the patient experience, and UI UX has become a primary piece of that. So, what role does CX play when it comes to the healthcare industry, and how do you see this trend evolving?
So I think this is going to be the most important crux of everything, right? How is the user experiencing healthcare? How is it
Right.
that I think one of the in the past, patients did not feel like they had any control on what's happening to them, other than you're always kind of uh, uh, begging for information, or you're getting all these different information coming your way. But now with digital health, you feel a lot more empowered. You feel you have the opportunity to be a lot more engaged as well.
Right.
So I think making sure that people get what they need, right? I mean, rather than blasts of, okay, if I'm a woman in this certain category, what are the kind of things I need to be mindful about? What are the kind of tests that I need
Right.
to do to make sure that I'm taking control of my health? So I think it becomes so much more personalized, and it is the duty of the government, the healthcare providers, to make sure that we curate that experience for the
Yeah.
patient. And that's what we are trying to do, right? I mean, it's not just about having a app ready for you. How do you make sure this app is your kind of one source of truth on what I need to be mindful of, what I need to be doing, how do I take care of myself, what are
Hmm.
the pitfalls that I could fall into, right? So making that customer experience as easy and simple. It needs to be simple for everyone to be able to use it, from the patient to the doctor to everyone else in the ecosystem as well, and make it engaging. I mean, it's not like in healthcare, you always say, okay, maybe I'll go to the doctor or go to a hospital once in 3 years, and maybe to a doctor 2 or 3 times in a year. But now that's changing. I might need to stay connected a lot more so that I can take the best control of my health. So for that user experience will be key. And what you're seeing is now very interesting models on gamification of this as well, right?
Yeah.
Like when you set your goals as 10,000 steps, like I can't go to sleep unless I've hit my 10,000 steps. It becomes a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
But I think it's great to be building those healthy behaviors, those right incentives. And when you're able to link it up between the payer, the provider, the patient, make sure patient
Hmm.
stays at the center of it, I think that's where you have a winning formula.
let's switch it up a little bit, Alisha. You have, as a young female leader, you are a significant role model in the healthcare industry, and just for, as an executive who's made great strides. And I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about, what motivates and inspires you, and maybe were there any formative moments in that, in your early days that have helped shape who you are today that you can talk a little bit about?
Sure. So I think, Leila, as most of us, we kind of go through this journey trying to discover ourselves, right? Mine has, I think you know a lot more when you're younger and what you want to do, and then somewhere things get lost and sidelined and hijacked along the way. For me, I did want to be a doctor when I was young. Kind of somewhere in between that dream kind of fell aside, and I went into consulting. I became a chartered accountant, but um, when I had a very unfortunate interaction with healthcare, when my son actually had a nasty accident, and
Oh,
I
okay.
suddenly started spending a lot of time. I was in England at that time and started spending sort of months at the NHS in the
Yeah.
hospital, speaking to doctors, speaking to nurses, taking care, sort of being part from a patient perspective or from a carer perspective. That's when it hit me like a ton of bricks that healthcare is where I want to be. It was the only thing that I connected with, and that lifelong dream that I had when I was a child came back. So I left
Hmm.
consulting at this point, and I said that even though I might not be a doctor and I cannot treat patients directly, I do want to be in this ecosystem.
Hmm.
The kind of impact that it has, the kind of power to touch people directly, it was something that resonated with me. I think there are these moments that sort of define and redefine our lives, and
Right.
it happens as you go along.
Great. Well, Alicia, it's been a great pleasure to have you on the show today. This wraps up this episode of DTV, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, Leila. Thanks so much.
Thank you.